A car came speeding toward us. At the critical moment, I pulled my wife and daughter aside, but I was hit head-on by the speeding sedan and thrown more than 10 m on the brink of death. My wife whispered in my ear, "George, I never loved you, and our daughter isn't even yours." I stared wide-eyed at the wife I had spent every day with, suddenly feeling that her pretty face was strangely unfamiliar. And Mary was staring at me intently, her eyes filled with anger and hatred. "This is the retribution you deserve. You broke us apart back then, and now you are getting what's coming to you. If you could go back to that noon years ago when you were napping at your desk, would you be willing?" I groggily opened my eyes and found a puddle of drool on the desk. While my arm bore a mark from supporting the weight of my head for so long, I looked up and saw that 2/3 of the desk was piled high with thick books. Glancing at the blackboard, it read 100 days until the college entrance exam. I looked around at the familiar yet strange faces, and I was completely stunned. I suddenly realized that I had been reborn back to my senior year of high school. At that moment, a boy appeared at the back window and threw in a note, which landed right on Mary's desk. Mary quietly picked up the note, glanced at it, and a radiant smile blossomed on her face. She carefully folded the note and tucked it into her pocket, then unconsciously looked up at me. When she noticed my gaze on her, Mary's expression clearly showed surprise and, of course, a hint of guilt. Mary was my childhood friend, but it seemed she was in love now. I didn't even need to look at the note to know what it said. It was a note from Michael inviting Mary to go roller skating that evening. Although we were in the same class, Mary's grades were worlds apart from mine. I ranked within the top 100 in the grade while Mary was beyond the 800th place. For her, getting into an ordinary vocational college was already a good achievement, whereas I was certain to enter a 985 university. Of course, Mary wasn't without her merits. She was tall, fair-skinned, and had delicate features. She was famously the school beauty. Although she didn't like studying much, Mary had a naturally beautiful voice. No matter what big or small events the school held, Mary was always the host. The teachers, leaders, and students all liked her, and quite a few students had a crush on Mary. Of course, almost everyone knew that Mary and I were very close. Because our parents were good friends, Mary and I grew up together and had known each other since we were very young. In the eyes of our parents and elders, we were a perfect match from birth. If nothing unexpected happens in the future, the two of us will enter the hall of marriage and walk through life hand in hand. With the college entrance exam approaching, Mary's parents have been extremely worried under their strong insistence. I set aside 3 days a week to tutor Mary. Their demands are not high. They only hope Mary can get into an ordinary university and attend college in the same city as me. That way, we won't have to be apart during university and can openly date. I once believed that Mary and I would follow our parents' expectations all the way. When we got to university, I would take the opportunity to confess to Mary, and naturally, the two of us would be together. It was as if everything had already been written in a book. As soon as it turned the next page, our future would unfold before my eyes. But just at that moment, Michael appeared and forcefully inserted himself into the scene. Michael was also a prominent figure at school, exceptionally handsome, and standing beside Mary. They looked like a perfect golden couple. Michael was very wealthy, seemingly with endless money. He never went without wearing designer brands. Handsome and rich. In that era of high school, someone like Michael was simply unbeatable. Moreover, Michael was an art student himself with long hair and a natural artistic aura. His melancholic gaze drove countless girls crazy. Such a young, handsome, and wealthy Prince Charming had every woman falling for him without exception. And Mary was no different. She was captivated by Michael. However, Michael had one flaw. He loved fighting and causing trouble, and he was closely associated with the troublemakers at school. Although she was a transfer student, she paved her way with money, and soon a group of shady friends surrounded her. Moreover, the school's management of arts students was already somewhat lax. Their academic curriculum was light and most of the time they were either out of town sketching or wandering around the school. Recently, I heard that Michael had a falling out with a teacher at the school, even got into a fight and ended up breaking that male teacher's nose. But despite all that, it seemed Michael's family used their power and money to smooth things over. The school didn't discipline Michael, not even a formal reprimand. Everyone knew Michael had considerable backing and their respect for him only grew stronger. The boys all called Michael boss when they saw him. Their eyes filled with envy and admiration. While the girls secretly harbored crushes on this charismatic figure, seeing him as the standard for their Prince Charming. I had reminded Mary countless times to stay away from Michael. He was a dangerous person. But Mary didn't care at all. She told me, whose youth isn't confused? Whose youth isn't wild? If it's not wild, can it even be called youth? If you don't fall in love with someone, how can you say your youth truly passed? I told her Michael was a jerk. Someone who played with girls' feelings. Always trying to hit on any pretty girl he saw. But Mary didn't care. She told me, don't be fooled by Michael's rough exterior. He loved fighting, skipping class, smoking, drinking, and hanging out with a bunch of bad company. But this person was very loyal and warm-hearted. Although his reputation was not good, Mary felt that he was a good person. Mary also told me a story about how once when she was cornered by a group of thugs outside school, it was Michael who heroically came to her rescue at the critical moment and drove them away. Because of that, Mary was spared from humiliation by the thugs. And from that day on, Michael held a special place in her heart. At first, the two exchanged letters, but gradually they grew closer, and Michael began to ask Mary out. Whenever Mary spoke of Michael, her face would light up with a radiant spring glow, and a love in her eyes seemed about to overflow. But every time Mary confided these things to me, she did so without any reservations. She had no idea that I was jealous, nor did she realize that her words would hurt me. She told me countless times that she only saw me as a brother she could act spoiled with without any hesitation. On the day Mary and I got married in my previous life, I finally understood the expression on her face, why it was a perfectly measured indifferent smile. Throughout the entire wedding, Mary didn't show the slightest hint of warmth. From beginning to end, she maintained a demeanor as calm and unruffled as a chrysanthemum, completely unmoved. It was only after I was reborn that I fully understood that Mary never truly loved me back then. In her heart, she never loved me at all. In her eyes, I was just a stranger, an outsider. The reason she married me back then was nothing more than numbness after her heart had turned to ashes, of course. Maybe it was also for revenge. My thoughts returned to the present, and I looked toward Mary, not far away. A beam of light fell on her face, making Mary's skin appear fair with even the veins on her face clearly visible. George, if my parents call and ask, just tell them I'm tutoring at your place. Don't say anything else, okay? Mary looked at me with a smile on her face. I could even see a hint of coquetry in her eyes. Actually, Mary has always been like this in front of me since we were kids. Since I'm older, she has always treated me like a brother. In front of me, Mary never saw herself as a girl. She saw herself as a tomboy. Every time Mary got into trouble, I took the blame for her. And whenever Mary wanted to do something, she would always use my name as a cover, all the while comfortably enjoying the care I gave her. But now in this second life, I finally understand what Mary meant. So looking at Mary in front of me, I didn't say a word. There was a hint of weariness in my eyes. Can you please do me this one favor? Next time you need something, it'll help you, too. We can help each other, okay? But you have to promise, don't ever tattle to my parents, and definitely don't tell them I went ice skating with Michael. Mary leaned closer to me, grabbing my arm and gently shaking it. It was a habit. Whenever Mary needed something from me, she would use this little gesture to make me give in easily. And every time she acted so sweetly, I would compromise. But this time I didn't react at all. I was about to refuse Mary when suddenly a commotion came from outside the window. And even the girls in the class quickly turned their heads to look outside. Michael is here. The girls let out surprised sounds as if they had just spotted their favorite celebrity. The girls chattered nonstop, their eyes shining brightly. And at that moment, I noticed Mary's lips curled slightly, a look of pride and confidence. There were countless girls in the whole school, and many of them were beautiful. But Michael only had eyes for Mary. This made Mary feel proud, feel special, feel unique. You have to agree whether you want her or not. If I find out you dare to snitch, it'll cut ties with you from now on. Mary gently pinched my arm, then turned to look out the window. A long-haired, handsome guy stood at the back door looking just like the male lead in a romance drama. His face so exquisitely handsome, it was breathtaking. Whether it was his height, appearance, or temperament, Michael was every woman's dream lover, a prince on a white horse. Even as a rival in love, I couldn't help but admire Michael's priest and seat was as if God had specially sculpted him as a gift. Though I'm a man myself, I have to admit that Michael's looks were truly handsome and enduring. His appearance was neither effeminate nor rugged. Instead, it struck a perfect balance, giving off a vibe that was both romantic and gentle, tough yet tender. Michael just stood there, and the girls in the class erupted in excitement, chattering nonstop. But Michael's gaze was fixed on Mary, and when their eyes met, 2 rosy patches appeared on Mary's cheeks. All the girls in the class turned their eyes to Mary in unison, as no one had expected Michael to come looking for her. Soon the girls started to laugh, a mix of envy and jealousy swirling among them, leaning against the door frame. Michael wore a lazy smile, ignoring the chatter in the classroom. His gentle eyes stayed locked on Mary as he said, "Did you read the little note I gave you? After school, let's go ice skating together." Once it was confirmed that Michael had truly come for Mary, the whispers and murmurs in the class grew even louder. Because before this, everyone assumed that Mary and I were a perfect match, a golden couple made in heaven. But now, with Michael's forceful intrusion, I appeared emotionally overshadowed and somewhat desolate, making me look like a loser. Countless surprised and sympathetic glances were cast my way, making me feel utterly ashamed. Even though I was living my life over again, I could still feel the emotions I had back then. But soon, my expression gradually calmed. After all, I was a man nearing 30, an aged soul reborn in a youthful body. Yet, my mind remained that of my previous life. Sigh. If it were me, I'd choose Michael, too. Yeah, George is good, but compared to Michael, he really is. Michael naturally knew about my relationship with Mary. His gaze challenged me. But I simply responded with a calm smile, my eyes gentle yet distant. The sudden aura of confidence I displayed even surprised Mary. It seemed she had never seen me like this before, looking at me with unfamiliar eyes. Everyone thought I would be jealous, that I would lose my temper. But only I knew that at this moment my heart was very calm. Even when facing the overbearing Michael, I remained calm as if this matter had nothing to do with me at all. My composed attitude suddenly made Mary feel a bit uneasy. She came up to us, looking at me hesitantly, and asked, "Are you going to let me go or not?" At that moment, everyone's eyes turned sharply to me. Even Michael's gaze held a hint of hostility because they all noticed how much Mary relied on me in her tone. "Your legs are attached to you. If you want to go, then go. I'm not going to control you." Reborn into this life, my personality hasn't undergone a complete transformation, but I've come to see many things more clearly. I'm no longer obsessed with Mary. Since Mary likes Michael, then she should follow her own destiny. This time I won't interfere with Mary, nor will I forcibly break them apart. And I certainly won't let her hate me. When Mary heard me say this, her expression first showed a slight sadness, then quickly shifted to one of delight. Her joy over Michael far surpassed what she felt for me. And at this moment, I could see the sparkle in her eyes. "Really? I always knew you were the best to me." Mary came up to me and suddenly hugged me. Her action instantly stunned everyone in the classroom. No one expected Mary to do that, not even Michael, whose eyes showed a faint anger. If it had been a last life and Mary hugged me, I would have been overjoyed, ecstatic beyond reason. But this time, my expression was calm. Mary no longer held any place in my eyes. At this moment, I just wanted to quickly finish more practice problems and get into a better school. Having lived life again, I possess information that ordinary people don't. This life of mine is destined to be far more exciting than the last. And finding a woman like Mary is far too easy for me. I could even find a woman 1,000 or 10,000 times better than Mary. Even those female celebrities would be within my reach. For a woman like Mary who doesn't love me, there's no need for me to be obsessed. I gently pushed Mary aside, signaling that she could leave. At that moment, Michael also came in silently, standing between Mary and me. She stared coldly with her eyes while my gaze was filled with contempt. "You should know how to talk to Mary's parents, right? Don't let me catch you snitching or he'll make sure you die a miserable death." Michael stared at me coldly, his tone full of contempt. Then he slapped my shoulder hard, his eyes filled with a warning. "Stay away from my Mary from now on. Don't let me see you walking with her again." Faced with Michael's contemptuous bullying, I felt neither anger nor fear, but simply looked at him with a calm gaze. I was actually very clear in my heart that boys at this age are hot-blooded and wild. If I really angered Michael, he might do something irrational to me. So, I didn't provoke him, but instead met his gaze with complete calm. Michael may never have been stared at like this before. My gaze made him uneasy, and his eyes grew colder. "What exactly are you looking at, nerd? Just focus on your studies and don't meddle in things that aren't your business." I smiled at Michael, who said I'm meddling. Then I looked at Mary wearing a calm and detached smile. As I said, "If you don't need me to tutor you anymore, go back and make it clear to your parents. I won't lie for you, nor will I be your shield. And you've obviously noticed, too, your boyfriend doesn't like you getting tangled up with me. If you need to keep your distance from me in the future, then feel free to do so." After saying these words, I calmly sat back in my chair and focused on reading, completely ignoring the expressions of Mary and Michael. In the end they left, but the classroom fell silent. Everyone's gaze towards me had changed. No one expected me to have such confidence to confront Michael head-on. And even less did they expect that after Mary left with Michael, I showed not a hint of regret. George, I really have to hand it to you. How come I never saw it before? You're a hidden master." My deskmate looked at me in shock, his eyes full of admiration. The few girls in the class who had been completely infatuated with Michael now looked at me with slightly changed expressions. They keenly sensed that I was somewhat different from before. Of course, I was different. I had traveled back from the future and had endured tremendous emotional setbacks, gaining decades of life experience and insight. How could the mere body of a high school student possibly confine my aged yet unruly soul? I clearly remembered my previous life. Mary ignored my warnings and insisted on going ice skating with Michael. At that time, I lost control of my emotions and almost got into a fight with Michael. And in the end, Mary chose to stand by Michael's side. Moreover, from that point on, Mary's grades plummeted. They were never great to begin with, but by the time the college entrance exams were approaching, she had almost become the lowest in the class. In my previous life, because of Mary's sudden drop in grades, her parents asked me for the reason. At that time, since I liked Mary, I told her parents everything about Mary and Michael. From then on, Mary's parents no longer allowed her to associate with Michael. They even sent Mary to a special tutoring school, strictly supervised her, and took away her phone and all means of external communication. As a result, Mary still couldn't catch up in her college entrance exams and ultimately failed to get into even a vocational college. Meanwhile, I successfully got admitted to a prestigious university, which made Mary's parents deeply regretful and even more strict in monitoring her. It was during the summer vacation after our senior year that Mary and Michael planned to elope and escape to the big city together. When I found out, I told Mary's parents about it. On the night they were supposed to leave, Mary was locked inside the house by her parents and forbidden to go out. That same night, Michael suddenly had a car accident and died tragically. Mary was devastated to the point of attempting to drown herself and even cutting her wrists, wanting to die alongside Michael. Mary's parents were truly at a loss, helpless. They sold the house and took Mary far away to study abroad in Australia. After I graduated from university and worked for 2 years, I happened to run into Mary in the city. By then, she had become a somewhat famous musician who had returned from overseas. Mary playing the violin was so enchanting and so alluring. I apologized to Mary and she responded with a calm smile, saying that back then everyone was immature and that incident wasn't her fault. I thought Mary had forgiven me. But I never expected that she had deeply buried her hatred for me in her heart. She had been plotting revenge against me all along. Now, I even suspect that in my previous life, the car accident that killed me was orchestrated by Mary herself. Otherwise, how could such a coincidence happen walking on that road and encountering such a high-speed vehicle? But having been given a second chance at life, I have now been reborn into my high school years, unable to verify or investigate any of it. In my previous life, after Mary and I met, our parents arranged for us to be together quite naturally. We got married, had children, bought a house, and worked smoothly. I thought Mary and I would love and cherish each other for life, living a peaceful past. Unfortunately, that day, I was hit by a car on the road and everything abruptly ended. I clearly remember the last moment of my life in a previous life. When that deadly car rushed toward the three of us, I used all my strength to push Mary and our daughter to the roadside while I was thrown dozens of meters away. The car was moving at an extraordinary speed, splitting my body in two. The lower half flew onto a tree dozens of meters away while the upper half rolled into the grass by the roadside. Actually, when the doctor arrived, they declared that I was beyond saving, but as per protocol, they still had to carry me onto the ambulance. The moment I was lifted onto the ambulance, my life had already entered its final stage. And in the most painful, most tragic last moment of my life, Mary whispered in my ear that she had never loved me and the child was not mine. She also told me that every time I was not at home, she would bring all kinds of men back and none of those men were as good as me. Marrying you was just to get revenge because you broke up Michael and me. Under Mary's eyes filled with extreme hatred, I ended my life taking my last breath. Reborn into this life, I deeply understood the consequences of entangled karma. So this time I decisively drew a clear line with Mary, never to have any contact until death. In fact, it wasn't just because in my previous life I interfered in Mary and Michael's relationship and suffered retribution. I also clearly remembered how back then to stop Mary and Michael from being together, Michael repeatedly threatened me and even sent people to beat me. At that time, the situation escalated greatly. I repeatedly complained to Mary's parents, which made Mary hate me completely. As for Michael, he was even more direct and violent every time. Mary would bring people to block me at the entrance of my workplace. He also spread rumors among the students that I was a snitch. And in the alleys outside school, they beat me until my mouth and nose bled. I no longer remember how many times Michael brought people to beat me or how many humiliations I endured. All I remember is that I bore the shame and hardship because I didn't want Mary to go down the wrong path. Unfortunately, Mary never appreciated my efforts. She only thought I was the one who broke up her relationship with Michael. Even though I should have been among the top 5 students in the whole school and was guaranteed admission to a 985 university in my previous life, I only managed to get into an ordinary key university in the end. In fact, getting into a prestigious university has always been my dream. But in my past life, I gave up on this dream for Mary. Now that heaven has given me a second chance to live and choose again, I naturally want to abandon my dream or my life for Mary, a woman who doesn't love me at all. Looking at the familiar questions on the exam paper, I made up my mind. This time, I will definitely get into the university I've always dreamed of. With 100 days left until the college entrance exam, I resolved to block out everything outside to have nothing to do with anyone or anything. I am determined to fight hard in these final 100 days. I quickly forgot about Mary. Whatever happened between her and Michael no longer mattered to me. But sometimes I still kept an eye on the seat behind me. I noticed Mary hadn't been attending class for a long time. Skipping lessons had become a regular habit. She even secretly transferred herself to the music class in the arts department just to be with Michael. Since then, the chances of me meeting Mary became even fewer, and our relationship gradually grew distant. Even the childhood bond we once shared seemed to have evaporated. But I didn't care because I had only one goal in my heart, to live this life well and not disappoint the favor that heaven had bestowed upon me. The next time I saw Mary was half a month later, and by then she had changed a lot from before. Her hair was dyed dark red and she wore exaggerated clothes. I also noticed that Mary had learned to wear makeup with heavy eyeshadow that completely covered her fair skin. When she saw me walking by, Mary still stood up and greeted me. "How is it, cool or not?" Mary showed me her cheap outfit along with a streak of white hair on top of her head. She took off the headphones hanging around her neck, skillfully pulled out a cigarette from her pocket and lit it. The whole action flowed smoothly. She took a deep drag, then exhaled the smoke through her nostrils, even blowing a puff of smoke right in my face. I just looked at Mary indifferently. The Mary now was no different from a street thug. She was a replica of a little delinquent. The spirit that once lived in her was completely gone. "Oh, you think this is cool?" I smiled warmly at Mary without a hint of impatience. In my previous life, if I had seen Mary fall so low and become like this, I would have definitely lost my temper, gotten furious, and rushed to her house to complain. But this time I remained calm and composed, unshaken in my heart, respecting others' destinies, and letting go of the savior complex. This is not only to respect Mary's fate, but also to respect my own. If in this life my destiny intertwines with Mary's again, I would be betraying the great favor heaven has bestowed upon me. In fact, sometimes I can really understand why Mary feels so rebellious because her parents have been extremely strict with her since she was a child. Their control has reached an almost pathological level. So Mary has been suppressing herself, constantly tormenting herself. Inside her heart, there's a wild youth, a rebellious little spirit. And now, this rebellious emotion has finally taken control of her life. She has completely let herself go. Michael was the one who completely unleashed the rebellious emotions in Mary's heart. He opened Pandora's box, allowing Mary to finally become the person she had always wanted to be. Study hard. You've always been my pride. In the future, get into a good university, sitting in an up like me. Mary wore a face full of weariness, but it was just a forced expression of sorrow for the sake of a new verse. In truth, she didn't really understand what she was saying, nor the meaning behind her words or what they represented. I said, I would, and you don't need to worry about that. Just take good care of yourself. My indifferent attitude seemed to anger Mary. Her expression gradually grew more agitated as she looked at me. She said, George, what are you pretending for? Don't think that just because you study well, you're bound to succeed. Even if you finish school, won't you still end up working a regular job? I said, yeah, that's just how the world is. Some people don't have to do anything and still live the good life, while others work their hardest to get into a good university, but after graduating, they're still just working a regular job. I didn't mean to argue with Mary. It was just that she noticed I had been deliberately distancing myself lately and found it a bit hard to get used to. She always saw me as an older brother, but my current attitude seemed to make her uncomfortable. Watch your damn mouth. This is our sister-in-law. Got it or not? A few thugs smoking in the hallway seemed to notice the argument between Mary and me. They surrounded us, cigarettes dangling from their lips, looking at me with hostile eyes. Mary seemed to enjoy this. She took a drag from her cigarette and looked at me contemptuously, saying, just be a bookworm, then. What are you doing? If you bully my classmate again, you'll report it to the teacher. A girl wearing a white dress appeared behind me. She was the class monitor of our class, the top student in the school, and also the principal's daughter. She also had a very beautiful name, Sophia. Perhaps afraid that I would be bullied. Sophia, who happened to pass by, was a bit scared, but still stepped forward to warn those troublemakers on my behalf. I was both surprised and astonished. I hadn't expected Sophia to be so cold to me all along. Yet, at this moment, she actually stood up to help me. I quickly turned to Sophia and waved my hand, signaling her to leave immediately. I told her I was fine and that these people were all friends who wouldn't bully me. Sophia gave me a suspicious glance, then frowned as she looked at Mary, her eyes betraying an unmistakable contempt and disdain. She said, George, you shouldn't hang out with these people. Nothing good comes from being with them. There are less than 70 days left until the college entrance exam. You need to work hard, push yourself, and fight for your dreams. I said, it's nothing. You go ahead. It'll explain everything to you when I get back. Sophia was a model student and her looks were no less than Mary's. Her sudden concern stirred something inside me. Although the thugs were scolded by Sophia, considering she was the principal's daughter, they didn't dare to act rashly and could only glare at me fiercely. Only after Sophia had completely walked away did Mary glare at me with a sly look. She said she had recently heard that I was getting close to a girl. Could it be this Sophia? She said, I was pretty impressive, managing to win over the school's top beauty so quickly that I didn't bother saying much to Mary. Seeing how far she had fallen now, to be honest, it did hurt a little inside. But then I remembered how viciously Mary had treated me in my past life, and I felt no sympathy for her at all. As the saying goes, old habits die hard. The fact that Mary could be so cruel to me in my previous life just proved she was never a good person to begin with. I'm fully focused on the college entrance exam right now. I don't have time for romance. Sophia and I are just ordinary classmates. Maybe she's just worried I'd get bullied or look weak in front of you upper-class students. I looked at Mary and smiled. Mary, however, was very unhappy with my attitude. She felt I had been deliberately distancing myself from her lately. She reached out and grabbed my arm, staring at me seriously as she asked, George, are you trying to draw a line between us? If you're dating someone, why didn't you tell me? Am I still your sister or not? Aren't we childhood sweethearts who grew up together and good friends? I was really at a loss with Mary clinging to me like that. So, I just smiled and said to her, fine, let's say I am dating someone. Anyway, in front of Mary, I'm too lazy to argue about anything. In my previous life, Michael repeatedly sent people to block me, which greatly affected my studies. This time, I don't want to repeat the same mistakes. So, when Mary pesters me, I just tolerate her and don't want to anger her. I told you, right? You finally admit it now. I said, George, what kind of taste do you have? Are your eyes okay? Then Mary said, could it be that you fancy Sophia's dad because he's the principal, hoping he'll give you extra points on your exam papers? After I said no, Mary mocked Sophia's appearance again. She laughed at Sophia's short height and freckles on her face, but I remained silent about it. Actually, Sophia wasn't short at all, and she didn't have many freckles. In fact, Sophia's looks were even slightly better. George. Oh, George, I used to think you had some taste, but I didn't expect you to be so desperate and reckless. If you're going to find a girlfriend, at least find someone close to me. Choosing a woman far inferior to me, isn't that embarrassing for you? Mary looked at me with contempt and even blew a smoke ring in my face. I was so choked by that sudden puff of smoke that I kept stepping back, tears almost streaming down my face. Through the thick haze, I saw Mary and that group laughing together. In fact, Mary has always been a very scheming woman. Actually, on the day Michael came to the classroom to take Mary out ice skating, Mary deliberately hugged me just to provoke Michael's competitive spirit. Mary has always been using me. She's always known that I liked her, that I secretly admired her in my heart. She took advantage of this feeling, acting recklessly and using me casually right in front of me. In my past life, I was blinded by love, naively believing that Mary truly liked me and genuinely wanted to spend her life with me. That's why Mary used me. This thought fueled a fierce desire for revenge. And I died with my heart full of regret. After being given a second chance at life, when I no longer cared about Mary's fate, no longer loved her, Mary became insignificant in my eyes. Everything I couldn't understand or see through before suddenly became clear. You say Sophia is ugly and doesn't deserve me. I don't agree with that. I've always been just an ordinary guy. In your eyes and in Michael's eyes, maybe I'm just a bookworm. A bookworm like me. What right do I have to be with a girl who's on the same level as you? I never once dared to hope for that. I have never considered being in a relationship, nor have I ever liked anyone. I just want to study hard and lay a solid foundation for my future. Youth is not only about indulgence, but also about sweat. I gave a faint smile and a gentle retort, using this way to tell Mary that I actually didn't care about her. Sure enough, Mary understood my expression and grasped the meaning behind my words even more clearly. She glared at me fiercely, her face turning very unpleasant. She deliberately walked past me and slammed into me hard, causing the large stack of homework I was holding to fall all over the ground. And the thugs behind her also shamelessly walked over these homework books, trampling the students' notebooks into a mess. I watched Mary storm off angrily, a cold smile appearing on my face. I finally understood Mary completely now. Poor me. In my previous life, I thought Mary was a delicate little sister. But in fact, Mary had always been a scheming woman. When she heard from me that I didn't like her, the disappointment and anger she showed were not fake. They truly came from her heart. Although she didn't like me, it didn't stop her from enjoying the feeling of humiliating me, hanging me up and whetting her appetite. Maybe what Mary wanted to see was me suffering unbearably for her, living a drunken dream-like existence for her, being haunted by her, giving up my studies for her, and falling into ruin because of her. Perhaps if I had done that, I would have only become a topic of gossip for Mary, a subject she would boast about to others to flaunt her charm. With a strong learning foundation from my previous life combined with decades of experience and increased intelligence, the pressure of senior year studies was not much for me. I was full of energy as if I had endless stamina. While others could complete one set of exam papers, I could use that time to finish 3 sets. Even so, I didn't dare to slack off. During this period, I had been giving my all in reviewing, striving to master every subject thoroughly. Soon the first mock exam was approaching and everyone was taking it very seriously. George, can I borrow your notes to take a look? Sophia came up to me. I don't know why, but ever since Sophia helped me last time, we've been interacting more. It's either she deliberately comes over to ask me questions or to borrow some small things. Actually, I am very clear in my heart that the high-achieving Sophia doesn't need me to explain problems to her, nor does she really need to borrow things from me. The reason she stirs up these matters is just to find an opportunity to say a few words to me. Of course, I wouldn't refuse such an outstanding Sophia. I gladly agreed to lend her my notes and even generously lent her my error notebook as well. During the break, I went downstairs to use the restroom, but at the corner of the stairs, I was blocked by Mary. She grabbed my arm tightly, looking very affectionate. George is about to take an exam soon. Can you lend me your notebook to look over? If I don't do well this time, my parents will kill me. They even said they would sign me up for tutoring classes, so I wouldn't have time to be with Michael. If I can't see Michael, he'll die. Can you help me, please? Mary coquettishly acted spoiled towards me. Before, every time she used this trick, I would immediately raise the white flag and beg for mercy. But now, my heart remained completely unmoved. Mary's pitiful look might have worked on the old me, but to the current me, it was no better than a poor imitation. A person's perspective grows with time and experience. Now, in my eyes, Mary simply cannot compare to Sophia. At best, Mary is just a pretty little troublemaker. But Sophia is the white moonlight in countless hearts, the true goddess of adolescence. I told Mary that I hadn't taken any notes. Actually, Mary didn't really want any notes. She just wanted an attitude from me. She was testing me, probing to see if I had any feelings for her. Maybe my cold attitude last time left Mary feeling unwilling to accept it. In her eyes, I was just a perennial backup. And the fact that I didn't care about her at all seemed to have shaken her confidence. I guess that Mary was definitely thinking about how to stir my feelings again to make me restless once more. When I confessed to her, she would surely read my love letter aloud in public and then harshly humiliate me in front of everyone. Unfortunately, this time, with decades of experience and insight, I didn't take the bait at all in my eyes. Mary was just a naive girl, and I could see right through her intentions at a glance. George, can you tutor me since I don't have notes? I know you're the best at highlighting key points. Could you mark all the important parts for the exam and help me catch up? That way, my test scores won't be so terrible. If that's not possible, could you stay up tonight and write me a summary of the exam highlights? Wouldn't that work? Mary acted as if it was only natural, as if her requests were a favor she was granting me. It seemed as if I was born to be her servant at her beckoning call. Although I felt repulsed inside, there was no trace of it on my face. I calmly and directly refused, telling Mary that the exams were approaching soon and I needed to conserve my energy and rest well to prepare for the first mock exam. If I wasn't in good spirits during the test, it could seriously affect my grades. Mary clearly didn't expect me to refuse, especially since I had always complied with her requests before. You helped me stay up late to catch up on lessons and even took notes for me before, didn't you? Why can't you do it now? Mary's voice involuntarily rose. Seeing Mary flustered and upset, I couldn't help but want to laugh. This little sister who grew up with me, this childhood friend who grew up alongside me. Now in my eyes, she was worth nothing at all. I said, just to appease your parents. You make me spend time and energy doing those meaningless things for you. Do you think that's fair to me? Have you ever considered me? Hearing my words, Mary was completely stunned. She had never imagined I would approach things with this kind of mindset. Before this, I always sacrificed myself to light up Mary. But now, I was finally starting to take care of myself. She began to fly into a rage, cursing loudly, pointing her finger in my face and saying that being good at studying was nothing special, and even if I got into college, I would just be a bookworm. Then Mary started talking about Michael again. She said Michael's family had plenty of money and even if she didn't have to work hard, she could become a rich wife in the future. After Mary had thoroughly humiliated me, she turned and walked away. Her angry demeanor made me smirk coldly inside. Watching her, I knew she was deliberately slowing her pace, waiting for me to beg, waiting for me to ask for her forgiveness. But I couldn't be bothered to pay her any attention. There are plenty of beautiful flowers everywhere in the world. Why be infatuated with just one? Especially when the Mary in front of me was a poisonous flower. I had actually already come to my senses. Reborn into this life, my mindset was worlds apart from my previous one. This time I chose to study, to work hard, to live a different life. I didn't go back to apologize to Mary. Instead, I turned and returned straight to the classroom. When Mary, fuming, waited for me to apologize, she found the hallway completely empty. Why argue with her? Just laugh it off. Back in the classroom, Sophia was already waiting beside my seat. The moment she saw me, she whispered a warning that I didn't expect Sophia to care about me so much. I nodded at her and said I would definitely be careful next time. Try not to argue with Mary. Whatever she says now is final. The exams are coming up soon. And after that, everyone will go their separate ways. You won't have to worry about her anymore. By then, even if she wants to cling to you, she won't be able to. Sophia still seemed uneasy and reminded me again. I never imagined that Sophia's inner world was so mature, more mature, even than mine, an adult who had traveled back in time. She saw things with such clarity, and I couldn't help but develop a strong fondness for her. I never imagined that your inner world could be so rich and delicate, and your mindset far surpasses that of your peers, much more mature. I looked up and couldn't help but praise Sophia. Sophia, embarrassed by my compliments, blushed and hurried back to her seat. I sensed the gaze fixed on me from behind. When I turned around, I saw Mary standing by the back door, staring at me coldly. Just now, Sophia and I were laughing and talking, and unfortunately, she caught us. I wasn't worried about Sophia. After all, Sophia's father is the principal. No matter how crazy Michael gets, he wouldn't dare mess with Sophia since the principal still calls the shots at this school. I vaguely felt that Mary might be developing feelings for me. A headache hit me. Although my young body now housed the soul of an adult, I was completely powerless against a punk like Michael. After all, I was like a precious jade, while Michael was at best just a tile. If jade clashes with a tile, even if the jade wins, it will still be damaged. Sure enough, I guessed everything correctly. After the evening self-study class ended, I was about to ride my bike home when, unexpectedly, Michael on his motorcycle blocked me at the alley entrance. Mary sat arrogantly behind him on the motorcycle. The weather had just warmed up and she was already wearing a short skirt and black stockings, looking like a woman of the night. Michael took out a cigarette and held it in his mouth. Mary, sitting behind him, immediately lit a lighter and lit his cigarette for him. The two of them worked together with seamless intimacy. Clearly not the first time doing this. I felt nothing inside, just calmly stared at Michael and asked, "Is there something you need? If not, please move aside. I want to go home." Michael didn't move aside. Instead, he twisted the throttle and a large displacement motorcycle roared loudly. "You've got some nerve. You made my girlfriend angry, you know. Get off the bike and kneel down. You have to apologize to my girlfriend today. Only when she's satisfied can you leave." Michael arrogantly pointed at my nose that I wasn't afraid at all because I had already prepared. In the backpack behind me, I had placed 2 bricks. If Michael and the others really dared to lay a hand on me, I would smash them hard at the backpack. I looked at Mary, who sat on the back seat of Michael's bike like a proud little rooster, glaring at me coldly. Her hands were tightly wrapped around Michael's waist and with a contemptuous tone, she pointed at me, telling me that if I wanted to leave here today, I had to apologize to her and agree to tutor her. Not only that, whenever her parents asked about it, I had to actively cover for her and Michael, otherwise, I would pay the price today. I looked at Mary with some disappointment, my eyes filled with deep disdain. If Mary's cruelty over money once made my heart race, then perhaps now Mary was finally showing her true nature. The Mary who once gave everything to me in my past life at least threw herself in a love recklessly and sought revenge for love. But the Mary now is nothing more than a selfish and petty person. The image of Mary as a pure and radiant light in my heart completely shattered at this moment. She has utterly fallen to being just an ordinary woman in my eyes. I glanced at Michael, then at Mary, and shook my head. I told them I wouldn't cooperate with whatever they planned, nor would I apologize or attend makeup classes. If they dared to block me on the road again, I would tell Mary's parents everything about them. Then, let's see if they could still be as carefree together as they are now. As expected, hearing me say that, Mary's face turned pale with fright. And even Michael fell silent because my words just hit their weak spot. No matter how arrogant they were, they had no way to deal with me now. If you dare to gossip, you dog, they'll cut out your tongue. Believe it or not, they'll have people block you every day, beat you every day, so you won't even be able to take your exams. Michael glared at me fiercely, even drawing a long knife from the right side of his motorcycle. I wasn't afraid at all. If they dared to make a move, I'd claim self-defense today. After all, I was a top student at school, and if anything happened, the school would definitely protect me. Maybe sensing the fierceness in my eyes, Michael also became a bit timid. He had never seen a student who dared to confront him he didn't like I did. Mary, sitting in the back row, also got angry. She grabbed something she didn't know what and slammed it hard against my face. "George, just wait and see. From now on, we won't know each other at all. It's no big deal. Just go to hell." After saying that, Mary wrapped her arms around Michael's waist and said, "Hubby, let's go." When Michael saw the fierce look in my eyes with not a hint of fear, he hesitated for a moment. Seizing the opportunity, he backed down gracefully, twisted the throttle, and left in a grand procession with his gang. Watching Mary's retreating figure, I couldn't be bothered to pay any attention. As for Mary's parents complaining, I didn't have the leisure for that. Mary now swore she had nothing to do with me. Even if she ended up begging on the streets in the future, I wouldn't spare her a glance. The mock exam time arrived, and I performed fairly normally. I was the first to hand in my paper in every exam room. After the exam, I went home and had a deep sleep, completely clearing my mind. I even took the initiative to ask my mother to give me extra meals to boost my nutrition during this period. I'm too skinny. I have to eat more to look better. Besides, college life is already calling to me. I can already foresee the vibrant, youthful image I'll have a few months from now after getting into my dream university. How did Mary do on her exam? Her mom ran into me today and even thanked you for tutoring her these past few days. My mom had no idea that Mary and I had already fallen out. I was too lazy to bring up the topic of Mary, casually brushing it off with a few words, then lay on the sofa watching TV. My mother, seeing my lack of interest in the subject, was quite surprised because before this, whenever she mentioned Mary, I would always be very concerned. Now, I had completely changed my attitude. After noticing my change, my mother became a bit different, repeatedly asking questions. She asked if I had a falling out with Mary. And even if I was in a relationship, I was too tired to answer these gossip questions. So, I simply got up and went back to my bedroom, lying on the bed, pretending to sleep. School days were still the most comfortable. Every day I immerse myself in mountains of books and endless exercises free from these worries. After I returned to school, the grades were announced. Without exception, my grades once again made a qualitative leap. Previously, my grades had always hovered near the bottom of the top 50 in the grade. But this time, my grades directly entered the top 10 in the grade. Although I was only 8th in the grade, it was already enough for me. When Sophia learned that I ranked 8th in the grade, she was even happier than when she herself ranked first. Excitedly, she came to my desk and told me to just focus on studying well and not to worry about anything else. I clearly sensed there was more to Sophia's words. So, I asked her what she meant. Sophia told me that just now she had heard some news. Mary and Michael were both caught cheating and were now facing expulsion. Hearing this news, I didn't react much. For people like Mary and Michael to be expelled from school, it would actually be a great thing for the other students. After all, these two troublemakers started around the school all day, turning the place into a mess. Sophia saw my expressionless face and was immediately a bit surprised. She asked me, "Aren't you at all upset to hear that Mary is going to be expelled?" I looked at Sophia and shook my head. I said, "Everyone has their own fate. We have to respect other people's destinies." Sophia seemed taken aback by my philosophical remark. Her gaze on me somewhat strange. A few days later, rumors began circulating around the school. Michael and Mary were ultimately not expelled, but another version spread. Someone claimed to have seen Mary enter the dean's office that weekend afternoon and said they heard strange noises coming from inside. The implication was clear: Mary had traded her body to ensure that she and Michael would not be expelled. I have an indifferent attitude towards these rumors whether they are true or false. They have nothing to do with me. I respect others' karmic suffering and let each of them taste it on their own. In my past life, I was truly miserable to the extreme. My wife didn't love me, constantly wished for my death and cheated on me in all sorts of ways. The most hateful thing was that the daughter wasn't even mine at that time who sympathized with me. So in this life after being reborn, I can remain as calm as still water. My heart is cold just like the fish gutting knife at the market, completely devoid of any mercy. The days of hard work and struggle are the most fulfilling days. During these days, I was lucky to have Sophia by my side. She discussed problem-solving methods with me every day, talked over study strategies, and even speculated with me about the Chinese exam question for the upcoming college entrance exam. For nearly a month, I hadn't thought about Mary at all. It was as if she had completely disappeared from my world. I thought my life would continue to be filled with diligent effort and that I would usher in a brand new chapter. But one weekend, Mary still stubbornly intruded into my life. She timed it perfectly, knowing my parents were not home. Taking advantage of them being out of work, she knocked on my door. When I opened it and saw Mary outside, I instinctively tried to close the door, but before I could, she slipped inside ahead of me. "Brother George, you have always been the kindest to me. This time, I've run into trouble, and you'll definitely help me, won't you?" As soon as I walked in, Mary grabbed my arm and pressed close to me. I was long accustomed to Mary's tactics, so I felt no stir of emotion. I quietly stepped to the right and then looked at Mary with a very distant, polite expression. "What's the matter? Tell me, and it'll help if I can. If I really can't, then there's nothing I can do. Cutting ties with Mary completely is impossible. After all, the families are still connected." Seeing that my attitude had softened, Mary became even more brazen. But the next thing she said nearly made me faint. Mary told me she was pregnant and suspected the child was Michael's. She asked me to find a way to borrow 5,000 yuan for her, saying she wanted to use the money to have an abortion at a small clinic. And she made me promise not to tell her parents. Of course, I refused without hesitation, not because I didn't want to help Mary, but because I was truly powerless. 5,000 yuan was an astronomical sum for me. After all, I was just a high school student and my parents only gave me 50 yuan a week for living expenses. After I rejected her, Mary still wouldn't give up. She urged me to steal money from my parents, but I refused firmly and decisively. I told her there was no better way to handle this. The only way to truly solve it was to confess to my parents. Unexpectedly, Mary cursed me for being heartless, called me a beast, and said I was a bookworm who would never amount to anything. I had long been aware of Mary's harshness, so no matter how much she insulted me, I remained indifferent. In the end, Mary left muttering curses under her breath. I didn't care how the matter was resolved. After all, Mary's problems were none of my business. To me, she was just a stranger. I neither hated her nor loved her. And I didn't even want to remember her until just before the college entrance exam. My mother suddenly told me something. Mary had gotten into trouble. She told me that when Mary was having an abortion at a small clinic, the procedure went wrong, causing severe bleeding, and she nearly died. Fortunately, the doctor at that small clinic still had some conscience. When he couldn't handle the situation, he quickly notified the city hospital and Mary's parents, which is what ultimately prevented a tragedy. Mary's parents went to the school and made a big fuss about the incident. In the end, Michael's family couldn't withstand the pressure either and had no choice but to take Michael home. Now, both Mary and Michael were expelled from school. Do you even know what kind of scumbag Mary's boyfriend is? I heard before that his family was quite wealthy, but it turns out his dad is just a gangster running a casino. M said with a look of disdain. When I heard my mom talk about this, my face showed no expression at all. My mind was still wandering over Mendelian genetics problems. Seeing my absent-minded look, my mom grew suspicious. She asked if I still liked Mary and warned me not to entertain such thoughts. I said, "Mom, you can rest easy. I never liked Mary, the first just saw her as a little sister. I hope she's okay after what happened. But there's nothing I can do to help. My main focus now is studying. Only by doing well in school, getting into a good university, and finding a good job can I take care of you in your old age and show you filial respect." My mom didn't expect me to be so perceptive, and her face instantly blossomed with a smile. She had been worried that I was distracted by thoughts of Mary and that it would affect my studies, but she never imagined I didn't care about Mary at all. Now, she was completely at ease. My mom told me that I was more mature and clear-headed than she had imagined, so she didn't have to worry about me anymore. However, when she mentioned Mary, she sighed deeply, saying what a beautiful girl she was. She had originally thought Mary would become her daughter-in-law. But now that idea was completely shattered. Mary, who had been expelled from school, became even more reckless in her relationship with Michael. But the two soon broke up. The first reason was that Michael ran out of money. He even sold his usually flashy motorcycle. They had to share a single bowl of noodles when they were together. And naturally, Mary wasn't willing to put up with that. Another reason was that Michael had found a new love, a girl even wealthier than Mary. She was also in the arts department studying music as well. Although she wasn't as attractive as Mary, at least her family was rich. Oh, Michael moved on, leaving Mary heartlessly dumped. She stayed at home all day, refusing to go out, and even told her parents that she was suffering from depression. When I heard the day before the college entrance exam that Mary had depression, a smirk appeared on my face. Depression was just an excuse Mary made up. How could someone as selfish and scheming as her possibly be depressed? At most, she was suffering from UU syndrome. I didn't pay much attention to Mary's situation at all. It was only when entering the exam hall that Sophia and I exchanged a few words of encouragement, promising to meet again at Qingbi University in the future. I vaguely remember that during the last mock exam, my scores had already climbed into the top 3. So, as the exam approached, I felt particularly confident. Throughout the entire test, I was in a state of creative flow, and I maintained this state through the next 3 exams as well. The moment I walked out of the exam hall and saw my parents, I felt an urge to cry. In my previous life, I had let Mary distract me from my studies. And in the end, I live an ordinary life. When my father needed money from medical treatment the most, I couldn't come up with any. But this life is completely different. I am capable of working hard now. If I still can't defy fate, then there's nothing I can do. Hello, Uncle and Aunt. Sophia also came out of the exam room and took the initiative to come over and greet my parents. Seeing the youthful and beautiful Sophia, who looked like a fairy, my parents were completely stunned. Especially my mom, who kept winking at me. When they found out that Sophia's grades were even better than mine, ranking first in the grade, my mom was absolutely shocked. I thought my mom would encourage me to pursue Sophia. But when we had dinner home that evening, she sighed and told me that our family simply wasn't worthy of her daughter. Neither in looks nor in background, or weren't even fit to carry her shoes. I just smiled and didn't argue. After the college entrance exam was over, I completely relaxed. Besides watching TV and reading at home, I often went out to exercise and ride my bike. That summer, I tanned as dark as an African, but I looked thinner, more energetic, and healthier. Since the two families were close, I inevitably heard some updates about Mary from my parents. I heard from my mother that Mary had recently gotten involved with Michael again, and Michael had repeatedly gone to Mary's house to cause trouble. After Michael got a new girlfriend, he kicked Mary to the curb, but Mary refused to give up. She went to confront Michael every day, demanding that he break up with his new girlfriend and get back together with her. She even stole money from her family to buy him a new motorcycle. Mary's parents were furious and heartbroken. Having such a daughter seemed to have aged them 10 years in just one. Whenever my parents talked about this, they sighed repeatedly, feeling that Mary was truly possessed. Even the neighbors once suggested hiring a spiritual master to exorcise Mary, but I only took this matter as a joke. I neither judged nor took advantage of the situation. That's the stance of an onlooker. I originally thought I would smoothly enter university in the future and never have any contact with Mary again. But one afternoon, Mary's parents suddenly called me, asking me to come over immediately. At first, I didn't want to go, but hearing Mary crying her heart out over the phone, I couldn't help but go. It turned out that Michael was causing a scene outside Mary's house, and her parents were at their wits' end. You, a worthless piece of trash, have no right to be my girlfriend. Besides, you can't even have children anymore. You are just a hen that can't lay eggs. How can someone like you carry on our family line? Michael stood at Mary's doorstep, shouting insults. Mary's parents were heartbroken and helpless. While Michael caused a scene at the doorstep, completely embarrassing them. They wished they could just disappear. When Mary's parents saw me arrive, it was as if they had found a savior. They hurriedly begged me to drive Michael away. But what could I do? Michael was a notorious thug known for being unreasonable. Reasoning with him was probably useless. Michael sneered and mocked me as soon as he saw me, shouting that I was a rebound guy and calling me AS. Oh, the S has finally arrived. Now that you're bored with your brain, you don't want it anymore. Finally, it's your turn. Michael looked at me with utter contempt. I paid no mind to Michael's mockery. I just shook my head slightly and said nothing. But Michael, thinking I was afraid of her, pushed his luck and pointed his finger at my nose, shouting, "You're just a nerd. Do you even know? The worn-out shoes I'm tired of playing with are the only ones left for you. You pathetic dog. You're only fit to play with what's left over from others for your whole life." I took out the phone I had just bought and waved it at Michael, indicating that I had already called the police. If he didn't get lost soon, he'd be heading straight to jail. Michael was indeed scared. He dropped harsh words, telling me to wait, then hurriedly slipped away with a group of his followers. I knew Michael often got into fights and had quite a few legal troubles. He was very afraid of the police. This tactic really worked. Seeing me arrive scared Michael off. Mary's parents let out a long sigh of relief. They invited me into their home, poured me some water, and looked at me with bitter expressions. Especially when Mary's parents heard that I had ranked first in the grade and was admitted to Qingbei University, the envy in their eyes became even harder to hide. Back when you and Mary were still young, we discussed with your parents that you and Mary would be betrothed and meant to marry in the future. We never expected things to turn out like this. Mary's mother couldn't help but shed tears. At that moment, Mary's bedroom door opened and she came out, pointing at my nose and cursing me harshly. She said that compared to Michael, I wasn't even worthy of holding his shoes. Mary called me a bookworm and said that even if I got into Tsinghua or Peking University, I would still end up a laborer. I didn't really care, but Mary's attitude only made me dislike her more. That night, I received another call from Mary's parents. It turned out that Michael had gone street racing in the afternoon and met a tragic death that evening. His motorcycle crashed into the bridge railing and his body was cut in half by the guardrail. Michael died quite tragically. When Mary heard the news of Michael's death, she was inconsolable, causing a huge scene at home, smashing the TV and the sofa. "George, come to my house quickly. Mary is crying terribly. You need to comfort her," Mary's parents said hurriedly over the phone. I politely declined Mary's parents' request over the phone. I had no obligation to meddle in their family affairs. And whatever happened to Mary had nothing to do with me. But the next day, I heard from my parents that Mary, in order to see Michael one last time, actually jumped from the 3rd floor, breaking both her legs. She was now completely hospitalized and wouldn't recover for at least half a year. I didn't let this matter get to me. It was as if I hadn't heard anything at all, turning a deaf ear. A month later on the train, I met Sophia, who was also heading to Tsinghua University. We exchanged a smile, and everything was understood without a word. That be by the time I saw Mary again. It was already 10 years later. By then, I had graduated with my master's degree 3 years ago and was working as a vice president at a major investment bank, a true golden collar. Sophia from back then had become my wife. She had now founded her own private clothing brand and the company was doing quite well, making money hand over fist. Just half a month ago, the financial investment bank where I worked officially signed a strategic agreement with Sophia's company, completing and around financing. It wouldn't be long before Sophia's company went public and I held 60% of the sales company's shares. By then, I would surely become a billionaire. "Honey, why did you buy me another bag? This one is quite expensive, isn't it? Besides, my closet is almost full. Today is my wife's, Sophia's birthday. I specially bought her a luxury bag." When Sophia saw the bag in my hand, her face immediately lit up with joy. She came over and hugged my neck, unwilling to let go. Sophia and I have been dating since our freshman year, and it's been a 10-year journey of love. Our relationship has long been strong and unbreakable. We can't be apart from each other. In the afternoon, they'll book a restaurant for us. We'll have a nice candlelight dinner tonight. Something romantic that I promised Sophia. As I headed out, this suggestion naturally received an enthusiastic response from Sophia. When I arrived at the mall to buy another set of jewelry for her, I suddenly saw a familiar figure. Although Mary had changed a lot since those years, I recognized her at first glance. Mary now was overweight, her skin rough, and her hair a mess. She was loudly arguing with a balding man she was grabbing. There were quite a few onlookers around, but Mary seemed dazed and indecisive, continuously shouting curses at the balding man while tears streamed down her face. But before long, the balding man suddenly exploded, grabbed Mary's hair, and started beating her wildly. After making Mary cry out in pain, the balding man stormed off, leaving Mary alone, sitting on the mall steps, weeping bitterly. I understood clearly the balding man was Mary's husband, and he had cheated, unwilling to accept it. Mary confronted him, only to be met with a brutal beating. I never expected that Mary, the incredibly spirited school beauty back then, would now have fallen to such a state, indistinguishable from an ordinary middle-aged woman. I handed her a tissue. Mary looked up, and when she saw me, her expression was one of indescribable shock. "It's you, George. Long time no see." Mary wiped her tears desperately, not wanting me to see her in such a disheveled state. Mary looked at the clothes I was wearing, then at my polished leather shoes. In her eyes, I saw both envy and frustration. She asked me what kind of work I did and how I was doing. I had no intention of showing off. I simply told her the truth. I was a vice president at an investment bank, earning a decent income, living a fairly content life, already married, and about to have a child. When Mary heard that I was with Sophia, her expression clearly changed and her face turned extremely unpleasant. She hadn't expected that I would actually end up with a high school beauty from back then. Mary and I talked a lot. She kept pouring out her troubles to me, but I was too lazy to listen. Mary followed me all the way outside the mall, and when she saw me get into my big Mercedes, her eyes were filled with disappointment. She finally said the words to me. She asked if I could lend her 200,000 yuan. And without a doubt, I refused her outright. Even if Mary had asked to borrow 20 or 50,000, I would have given it to her without hesitation. No need to pay back. But she boldly asked for 200,000 all at once. I knew Mary hadn't changed from back. Then she still saw me as someone she could take advantage of. You're already driving a Mercedes, and each piece of clothing costs tens of thousands. Why won't he lend me 200,000? Do you have any idea how hard things are for me right now? My husband cheated on me. He doesn't want me anymore. How am I supposed to live on my own on the crowded street? Mary shouted at me loudly. Passers-by all thought I owed Mary money. I sat expressionless in my Mercedes, instructing the driver to start the car while Mary ran after my car for quite a distance. Eventually, unable to catch up, she bent over, gasping for breath. I quietly stared at Mary through the rearview mirror until she completely disappeared from sight. I sighed softly, shaking my head. Mary's life had taken such a tragic turn, yet she still couldn't let go of her old habits. Perhaps she believed that by manipulating others, she could escape her current predicament. But life isn't a game where you can win by playing others. It's about facing reality and taking responsibility for your own choices. As I drove away, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had all come. Sophia and I had built a life together based on mutual respect and support. We had weathered storms and celebrated victories side by side. Our relationship was a testament to the power of genuine love and partnership. Mary, on the other hand, had chosen a different path. Her constant search for shortcuts and her refusal to take responsibility had led her to this point. I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was mixed with a sense of helplessness. There was nothing I could do to change her situation. She had to find her own way out of the mess she had created. As I pulled up to the entrance of the restaurant, Sophia was already waiting for me. Her smile was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the cold reality I had just left behind. Ready for our special night? She asked, her eyes twinkling with excitement. I nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over me. Yes, let's make tonight unforgettable, I replied, taking her hand. As we walked into the restaurant, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Our love was strong, and it would continue to grow. Mary's story was a reminder of the importance of making the right choices and valuing the people who truly care about us.